My time now is 9 o'clock, and we are going to start with the meeting. Can I have an indication from our committee members? I've already had Councillor Kwinana. Is Councillor Matiwane present?
Yes.
Yes. Councillor Strubel?
Morning, Chairperson. Morning, everybody. I'm present, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, councillors, members of my committee. I'm not going to waste time, colleagues. Let me take this opportunity.
Chair, I'm
Councillor
present.
Matiwane?
I'm present.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Matiwane. I've noted.
As well, I want to send my apology moving forward in the meeting because there are people that I must assist. I'll be juggling in and out of the meeting because they are here in my office.
Councillor Matiwane, not a problem. I want to request you. This agenda is not long, huh? And as Councillor Kwinana have requested this morning that there is a family of Twice which have lost a family member. You would also like to go and do some other stuff there. I've requested him that if you can quickly finish this meeting, we can all go there. Because some of us are related to that family. So I wanted to recommend that plea, Councillor Matiwane. You know. Number one, councillors, let me take this opportunity and welcome everyone and to this important meeting. I'm not going to waste time. I just want to have an indication. Members of my committee, they are all present. 2.2 members absent without leave and none from our committee. 2.3 members absent without leave, with leave. Yeah, from the committee members, none of us are present. All of us are present as committee members. Can I have an indication of other councillors present?
Morning, Chairperson, Councillor Wolmerans.
Morning, Chair. You've got Councillor Chokolo here.
Good morning, Chair. You've got Councillor Weideman.
Good morning, Chair. Lorraine Opperman present.
Morning, Chairperson. Councillor Combo.
Any other councillors?
Kalile Fagu.
Any other councillors? Thank you very much, councillors.
Chair, Councillor Davis here. Thank you.
Councillor Davis, welcome. Any other councillors? Thank you very much, councillors. Welcome, colleagues. Once again, can I have an indication of officials?
Osana is here, the official councillor.
Chairperson, good morning. Louis Kiep is here. I would ask the rest of my colleagues to introduce themselves and for Mr. Adonis to introduce the team from Human Settlements. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Amim.
Chairperson, David Adonis, I'm present. Lenile Petuna, Joel will also be in the meeting on behalf of the Directorate Human Settlements.
Eben Phillips, Director Community Services present.
Lamakoma, Director Corporate Services is in the meeting, Chair.
Any other officials? If none...
Who's it? Ek is hier.
Wie is daar nou? Is Carl. Is that Mr. Matthijs?
Good morning, Chairperson. Yes, who's it?
No, thank you very much, Mr. Matthijs. Thank you very much. Officials, welcome. Welcome. Can I have an indication 2.6? Members of the audit committee present? Can I have an indication? Okay, none. 2.7, members of the public. Chair, I'm not sure whether did communication or IT send a link for those members of the public who would like to join to this meeting. Can I have an indication, ma'am?
Good morning, Chair. This is
Okay,
Lizelle
ma'am.
speaking. The link is published on social media and it is live streamed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lizelle. Thank you very much for that indication. Colleagues, let's go straight. Point number 3, noting of provision of code of conduct for councillors and declaration of interest. Do you have any councillor or who would like to declare any interest to this meeting? Okay, thank you very much. Silence means consent, none. Point number 4, presentations. Director, do you have any presentations?
None, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, my Director. Point number 5, confirmation of our previous minutes. 5.1, previous meeting from 16 July. Start at from page 4. Colleagues, we're dealing with correction of the minutes now. Can we shoot?
We can shoot, sir.
Yes, Mr. Strubel. Do you have any correction which you would like to make, Councillor Strubel?
No, Chairperson, I'm good.
No, thank you very much. Colleagues, let's go straight. If there's none, page 6, page 7. Let's go straight to page number 7. Matters submitted by the municipal manager. Are we still fine, colleagues? Can we proceed?
We can proceed, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Then if none, thank you very much, colleagues. Let's go straight. Sorry, is anybody?
Yes, Chair.
Is that Councillor Chokolo? You must raise your hand, Councillor. I cannot see.
No, I've raised it. My hand is there, Chair. Just look at the hand.
Okay, Councillor. Okay, Chokolo. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, everyone. Chair, I'm not a member of this committee, but I remember the last section 80 we had the report on integrated human settlement status of Knysna housing projects for the 3rd quarter. Now, in your agenda, I don't see the 4th quarter. I'm not sure whether maybe what happened to that report, or is it still coming, Chair? Because I believe we should have the 4th quarter's report. Thank you, Chair. If I can get an answer on that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chokolo. Director?
Chairperson, I think that the report for the 4th quarter is not due yet.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Dwones. Councillor Chokolo, is that the follow-up?
Yes, please, Chair. Chair, look, the 4th quarter, I think, ended in June already, and we are in September already. So I wouldn't understand why is it not due yet. We are 3 months now into another quarter, so I don't know.
Chairperson, there is a report in the agenda with regards to the final quarter, 2019-2020 financial.
Thank you very much, Director Dwanes. I'm sure Councillor Chokolo, you have noted what the director have said. Mr. Petuna, do you want to add? I saw your hand.
No, I'm covered. I was going to say exactly what the director is saying, that there are 2 reports that deal with the finances. There's also another report that deal with the risks, that deal with the issues that you would want to perhaps want to touch on. But what the director is saying is correct. There are reports that are there in the agenda.
Thank you very much, Manager Petuna. Colleagues, we were dealing with the correction of the minutes. Colleagues, can we, if there are no concerns, that simply means the minutes reflects as discussed on the 16th of July 2020. Let's then move, colleagues, to matters arising. Councillor Strobel.
Sorry, Chairperson, so we can approve the minutes then.
No, thank you very much. Councillor Strobel is moving that we approve the minutes, colleagues. Director Dwanes, is that a new end or old end? Director Dwanes?
No, it's the old end. Sorry, it's the old end.
Thank you very much. Councillors, we are moving now. I see the end of Councillor Kosana.
Yes, greetings, Chair. I was having a technology problem with my phone. Now, Kirsty just assisted me. Sorry to take you back in the matter arising. But Chair, when I went through your agenda yesterday, the last minute we spoke about the Road 1 in Damsabo South and the 50 units of Damsabo South, but they are not reflecting in your agenda. And they didn't reflect even in your minutes. Is there any reasons for that? And also the matter that I thought that matter of the slippery soil will be part of your agenda today. So that if we need to push it to go to council so that we resolve as council how we can assist that area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kosana. I'm sure the director and manager will be able to respond on those 2 concerns. You know, Director Dwanes?
Chairperson, under item 7.3 on the agenda on page 77, that report dealt with each and every project, and Damsabos is part of that, so we can discuss it under that item.
Thank you very much, Director Dwanes. Councillor Kosana, we're going to deal with it there at page 77 of our agenda. Yeah, councillors, thank you very much. Once again, we are going to move now to a new item submitted by the MM 7.1 draft integrated human settlement policy. Director, do you want to come in? I see you have raised your hand.
Chairperson, the committee can recall that this item was on the agenda on our last section 80, and the committee referred it back to this section 80. I think I will suggest that the committee discuss the annexure 1 that is, or the annexure 1 that is actually the policy, proposed policy that is in front of the committee.
Thank you very much, Director Dwanes. Committee members, councillors, here is an item. Let's deal with it. The Director is quite correct that this policy was brought in our last meeting, and we have agreed that let's take it back, you know, and we are here today, colleagues. Let's move, colleagues. Committee members. Okay, thank you very much. Director Adonis, is that a new hand? I see Councillor. Let me start with Councillor Michelle Wasserman. And I saw the end of Mr. Joel, Official Joel, as well as Director Adonis, in that order. Michelle.
Thanks very much, Chair. Chair, you know, in NISDA, we have what we call the victims of housing developments. And those are the people who, once an area has been developed, for instance, OPATs, I'm thinking of OPATs specifically, you have people who were moved into TRA areas, but they never got a house. And they're still in the temporary relocation area 10 years later, with no hope of ever receiving a house because the areas into which they were moved are not ever going to be developed. And I think specifically of the area of Marikana in OPATs, but there are many such areas. And I would really like to see us have a policy in terms of which we recognize that these people have been sitting in a Wendy house for a long time, and that they should possibly be prioritized in future housing projects. So, Chairperson, I would like you and possibly the director just to consider whether you can't prioritize people who have been in TRAs for, say, longer than 5 years for future housing developments. So, for instance, when we're going to develop Hedefale or other areas, that people who've been sitting in TRAs for so many years couldn't be prioritized in the allocation of those, and that should be incorporated into this policy. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wasserman. Before I give my officials, can I give Councillor Skusana?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks to the councillor who just spoke. I cannot agree more with her. I can even move further by saying, Chair, I will propose that your portfolio and the portfolio of infrastructure need to sit together so that we can electrify for those who have been moved for the road. Because we call those victims that have moved for the project and we have built roads, but we don't have a plan for those people. I think it's high time that we prioritize for them as well in terms of electrifying for them as we are electrifying the informal areas. I think your department and electricity should work together so that we have a program, since we have money now for informal areas. Because definitely there are people who won't come back as in 2 years to 5 years, and there are people who are staying for 10 years in those windy houses. And we've been saying this to the former directors and to the previous leadership. At least now, under your guidance, we have hope. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Skusana. Noted. Can I give Councillor Kitty Weideman? Councillor?
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'd like to know about people that have been on the waiting list for housing. I'm just referring to the policy there. People have been on the list for housing for 20 years. They did qualify. They did not earn enough money then. At this stage, 20 years later, they have decent jobs and they can afford a house. Now, the problem is the land. I want to know about FLISP housing, and I would like to know how we can assist these people who are earning a salary, maybe over 15,000 Rand, how they can procure land to build a house. They have been on the waiting list for over 20 years, but as I say, they've progressed, they've improved, they've got more experience, they earn more money, but there is no opportunity for them to purchase a house or to purchase a piece of land. I'd like to know how we go about to assist these people who have been waiting for such a long time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Weideman. My directors have noted your questions, your concern. Can I hand over to my directorate? Director, you'll decide who's going to deal with which concern, which was raised by councillors. Councillor Director Adonis, can I hand over to you?
Chairperson, let me take the committee and councillors back to what we want to achieve with this policy. I think this policy encapsulates all the human settlements program that is enlisted in the National Housing Code And we remember that the previous policy and plan that the municipality had for the past 20 years, the Vision 2002, focused on the upgrade of informal settlements program. And that was the development methodology and strategy for Knysna municipality up to today. But there, as Councillor Wasserman and Councillor Skosana and Councillor Weideman indicated, the provision of FLIS, there is provision for the FLIS program in this policy document under the item on page, this policy is divided in basically two sections. On page 19, deal 3.1 deals with the affordable rental options with regards to housing delivery, subsidized housing delivery. And that entails all the programs within that rental program, like the social housing, the community residential units, and all the rental options. On page 23, 3.2 deals with the ownership options that we would like this council also to consider, because our development for a long time in Knysna was one-dimensional with regards to the upgrade of informal settlements. So we also deal with the land issue. So this is a policy framework that we put in front of this council in order for council to consider this policy. However, out of this policy, we then need to develop strategies and plans. How are we going to deal with it? How are we going to execute these policy programs? And what will be the risk and the appetite and the town planning? And this gives us an opportunity as council to approach housing in a much more integrated way in regards to services, with regards to town planning, with regards to private sector in investment, etc., etc. And I think that the issues raised by councillors with regards to TRAs is actually is also in this policy. However, we need to have an idea from council with the electrification, because TRAs, technically the people that is sitting in TRAs today, there will be a lot of them that will be accommodated in the housing project, because our deliverable and our funding just cater for 450 to 500 units per year. And that is why we put in front of this council today that if we want to eradicate or at least make a dent with regards to our backlog that is nearly 10,000 units or 10,000 need for 10,000 opportunities, then we need to approach this from an integrated process. And that is why we have this policy in front of council that encapsulate all the issues that the council has raised. As a matter of fact, this was already workshopped with the council, and we have the slides of the workshop also attached. So at the end of the day, I just the councillors can embrace the policy in front of them. I want to give opportunity for Joel also, Chair.
Thank you very much, Joel.
Thank you, Chair. I think Acting Director Adonis has addressed the fundamental issue. You'll recall last year in July 2019, you approved a strategic plan because the policy has to flow from a strategic plan. That strategic plan talks to all these issues that you're raising, that we should have a structured policy instruments that guide our administrative behavior, the way we manage houses, the way we develop houses, and the way we manage the assets, as well as actually relationships with the communities out there. So the policy that you have talks about principles, it talks about the typologies, it talks about the current actually limitations and weaknesses that need to be addressed. It talks about the need to enhance the capacity of the directorate, because it's one thing to have endless housing problems. It's another not to have the appropriate policy instruments and an appropriately capacitated department that is able to actually respond to the scale of the problem. So on page, in particular, on page 17 of the policy document, there are certain guiding principles we have set there around equity, transparency, pragmatism, social cohesion. I assume that councillors have read this because it's very important. It contextualizes the nature of the problem. What do we need to do in the short term, medium, and long term? NISA has never had a cohesive housing policy. And that has been at the helm of the biggest risk that we have as a municipality. So, and then on the other pages, we talk about typologies, in terms of type of houses that we must, from rental housing, breaking new ground, integrated informal settlements, upgrading, in situ upgrades, etc. We have never done, for instance, social housing in this council. We have managed only rental blocks, which are in well-located areas. Now we're saying, in terms of this policy, we must begin to ensure migration into well-located areas where we can use our existing flats to create more value in terms of quantities, etc. That is what these policy instruments, when we talk about it, we're driving it at. And we're saying we must have what is called strategic acquisition of land. We have never acquired enough land. We have land within NISA, but we don't have a town planning strategy in terms of how best to leverage the use of our land. So all this policy for the first time now is beginning to give some structure and meaning. It's not about minute individual projects here and there. It's about the total picture. We have to see the issue of typologies within the context of how do we begin to leverage the use of land so that we can decant people from the northern areas into well-located areas. If we don't do that, we're going to have a ticking time bomb on our hands. So on page, on part of the policy talks to, as I've said, actually the different markets. I think David began to talk about it. I mean, primary social housing market and the secondary social housing market. That's on page 22, where government have increased the target markets now. It's no longer ending at 7,005. People earning between 1.5 up to 15,000 can now get actually rental housing opportunities. So I go from that, then I go to 3.2. 3.2 talks about the other typologies I alluded to earlier. It lists all that we have to do. These are included in the National Housing Government legislation led by the National Housing Code, the Rental Act, New Housing Act, as well as actually the Social Housing Act. All of these are instruments that government has developed to guide municipalities actually to get housing going. The biggest problem we face in NISA is the terrain and slopes. I think Councillor Skosana has begun to allude to talk about actually the slippery soil in some areas. It's all over NISA. And unless we have what is called strategic acquisition of land, we're not going to win this battle. We've got to have to integrate people and put them in well-located areas where there's sufficient facilities and infrastructure. And then obviously on page 24, we talk about the type of, the ownership actually projects that we're talking about, from PNG, ISSP, which is really where people sitting in informal settlements are upgraded, as well as interim service sites, and lastly, GAP and FLISP. So you can see there's a variety of ownership actually challenges. Yes, currently, the current number we produce per year on average is 450 units. So it's not enough to stem the tide as per the numbers that Davi was alluding to earlier. We're developing per annum an average of 450 units, and they're all one-dimensional units, either in situ upgrade or BNG. We haven't done social housing, we haven't done actually intensification, because the biggest problem we're sitting with is land. How do we use our existing land actually to create value and quality? So, and then we go to the department 3.3, that's a department under Lindile that will be doing the actual project development, using the instruments, interfacing with outside partners to ensure that we can do actually sustainable developments. And then more importantly, we talk to the financial viability of projects. I mean, there's financial due diligence that we have to do. We're sitting in a situation where funding has become a serious risk. And even provinces told us, because, for instance, recently, because of COVID, they've had to cut our budgets. There are separate items in this meeting that talk to those issues. But funding is becoming a huge premium that we have to look into as a council. Then we talk to the issue under 4.5, how the units will be handed over upon being completed. This is part one. This is part one of the draft policy. Part two of the policy will talk deeper to the issues raised by councillors around actually how do we reprioritize allocations, etc. You can't take one problem and think it solves actually the bigger housing challenge that we have as a municipality. You've got to look at the typologies, you've got to look at a coherent policy framework and instruments to be able to relate to this. One of the biggest issues is the issue of land. Again, I'm mentioning that. Then we go to further on the technical issues on page 33, up to maintenance standards. In other words, once we have the houses within our midst developed, there's always a bit of a gap and weakness. How do we begin actually to maintain the housing assets? How do we begin to interact with the occupiers of the houses to take collective ownership of those assets and look after them before the transfer of the houses? Because the transfer takes actually maybe a year or two after people are sitting in those units because of nice historical planning problems. Most of the sites we have don't have subdivisional authorities, don't have individual even. We have raised these issues. We have actually acted on them. There is an advertisement, for planners to harm and help us actually in terms of our subdivisional planning, outstanding subdivisional authorities. So that is also work that's in progress, that's ongoing. And then the last item talks to that Avi had raised the framework, the strategic framework that we did. It's just to try to ensure that councillors can still recall what we agreed on. And most importantly, second last, is the issue of the 5 to 10 year program. We have begun to develop now what is called, how do we comprehensively respond? That's on page 49. Page 49 of the report talks about the numbers. We're now saying, instead of confining ourselves to 400, let's really look at developing close to 1,500 units in the first 5 years per annum. In other words, in each year, let's develop 1,500 units of those typologies I mentioned. And then the second year, which is the medium term, the 10-year, the 5 to 10 year program, is we increase the scale to possibly 5,000 per annum. It can be possible if the instruments are there. The land, the funding instruments, etc. If they are there, we can do this. This council can do that. But you can't do it if there's a vacuum. There is no policy. There is a policy vacuum. Lastly, then, when we submit part 2 of this, it will include detailed allocation processes, etc., which will clearly outline how do we begin actually to allocate the houses, because there is a strong weakness within the current administration in terms of how we do the allocations. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joel. Thank you very much for really taking us back, because I remember this policy was workshop, colleagues. But I see a number of hands. Councillor Ngezu, Councillor Kusana, Councillor Wasserman, and Councillor Ketty. In that order, colleagues, so that we can go straight to the recommendation. This is beautiful. Thank you very much.
Okay. Because Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, yami ndizabancinci kakhulu. Kodwa ke inkulu because sithetha ngezindlu. Mr. Chair.
Chairman is going to be small, but then also it's a great one because it's housing.
What's the strategy plan sabo banaso? Ndikhe ndayiraise ke kaninzi izinto ngapha kwi-offices zabo, but now ndidinga uyiraise up because ke bendike ndayiraise ngaphambili. Kukho izindlu ezingazange zakhiwe ngo-2000 iqala ko-develop Nice into yoba ziko-35-40 kuward 4. I-question yam ithi, ndandile kwaba bantu ke ndolanda i-approval zabo banazo, banemibane into abangenayo basezindlu and zibolile kuyanetha badala. Now ndonqena uphinda nje kwaba bantu ndobanika ii-hopes ezingazokwenzeka. Ndibawula uqonda apha kwe-meeting. Sithini kwesi strategic plan sabo malunga nezindlu ezingazange zakhiwa ngaphambili? Ndifuna nje ucacelwa kulaa ndawo. ukwenzela into yoba zizoyazi into yoba kanti akwaba abantu noko likhona ithemba elikhoyo ndingayi kubantu nto yobanika ii-hoops nje zingekhoyo nje. Okwesibini ndadiphakamisile. Okay.
Chairperson, in the strat plan that your department, your directorate is alluding to, I've raised this before, but I want to raise it again. There are undeveloped houses that were built from the year 2000. It's families that are sitting with approvals between 35 to 40 units, and where they are staying, their houses are deteriorating, rotting, and raining. I would like to know if they are part of this strat plan, because I don't want to raise a false expectation. I've raised this before, but I would like to know from this meeting if there is anything planned for them in the strat plan. Thanks.
Ukugqibela kumbuzo wami. Bloemfontein phase 1 ku-75 yezindlu. Zikhona izindlu endandikhalaze ngazo iimeko zazo ezinebhafu neetep ezivuzayo ntontoni. Umbuzo wam ndabawela ukwazi uba kule meeting uba loo nto yonke ya-athendwa na umhlaba wawumninzi phambi kwezindlu zabantu. Ndabawela nje uzazo zonto. Thanks.
Chairperson, again in phase 1 in Bloemfontein, I've raised this before. I would like to know that if these houses, 75 housing units, were attended to, because there was a complaint from their side that their taps and baths are leaking. I would like to know that if they were attended to, and also some of those houses, they had a lot of mud that was filling their properties. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ngezu. But at this point in time, Tastero, I've heard your concerns as well as questions which you've just raised, and I'm sure the officials will attend to those questions. But this item speaks about policy. I'm sure, they are going to respond to your questions. But I want us colleagues to stick as item as Tokakuyo. Yeah. So I said Councillor Kusana, Councillor Wasserman, and Councillor Weideman. Then after, I'm going to allow officials to respond. Can we go in that order, colleagues?
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Councillor Kusana, I've noted you, Manager Petuna.
Thank you, Chair. I don't want to drag your meeting, Chair, but it's unfortunate that when we send messages to your managers, they just read it, they don't respond. Now, this is the only opportunity that maybe they will answer us. Chair, in this policy, I think I need also to caution the councillors, even the administrators, and I will say it in council as well, because the land issue can't be a scapegoat code for us in Niger anymore. The reason I'm saying that, it's easy for people of Niger now, mushrooms, to find space of land, while we have administrators that we pay to look for land for us. And at the end of the day, those people have invade land in Bongani, in Etameni, in my ward. End of the day, those people will need services in terms of houses to be built for them. I think if the community could be proactive like that to get land for themselves, it means that we are failing as a collective. We need to be more proactive than them before, because I believe that if we can get those spaces before them, and see to level, so is proper for people, then we won't sit with this problem, because it's a problem in our face, this the land issue. And we must take land if we in Brandon. Officials must identify land. If we need to take land there, then we build for our people. We just what we're talking about integration. Thank you, sir.
The COSA portions were just saying, Chairperson, that we need to level those grounds and those land, identify them proactive before the community does that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Kusana, Councillor Wasserman, and Councillor Weideman in that order.
Hi, Chair, not to worry, it's an old hand, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Ketty.
Thank you, Chair. I do know that we have land in Karatara. I also do know that people have been born there, their parents have been born there, and they are looking for land to build houses, which they can afford to buy land. And I want to ask this question. We have identified 247 opportunities for housing. I would like to know, why can't we take some of that land and subdivide it and make it available to those people who can afford to do flip houses? I want to know if, for instance, if we do take 10 properties and subdivide them, we've got 20 pieces of land which we could make available to those people who can afford, especially the people that have been born there and living there for a long time, who can afford to buy a piece of land and afford to build their own house. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Weideman. I'm sure officials are taking note of the questions. I saw the hand, I see the hand of Councillor Salazi. And after Councillor Salazi, I'll hand over to Mr. Petuna and other managers to deal with the questions. Thank you. Councillor Salazi. Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to all councillors and officials here in this meeting. First of all, Chair, I welcome the policy because we can't work without policy. It's only one appeal I can speaking here. I think all of us, we must read the policy because this is the document is sitting with us for many years. All our problem is sitting in that policy. It's the only one thing, as much as we are workshop the policy, I advise that the councillors must be read the policy sometimes, because now we are starting working where the people staying first. This is the people is apply. The people have numbers apply for the subsidy house. When we going to the green land where there is no people staying, that where something is going wrong there, because there is no guideline of the policy. When municipalities build, who is the people is going and stay in that houses? It's supposed that policy is guide. Who is the people is occupy the houses? Is the people have approved? Is the people have in waiting list? Is it? That's why I appeal to the councillors. We must read these policies, even including myself. I want to get a time to read. I read it, but it's not finished. So that tomorrow I am not fighting with the official when he's saying, the police is saying, you are speaking in the left, the police is speaking in the right. So this is what the advice I give at the moment, that all of us must read the policy. And I think at the moment, I'm very happy that the official is in housing at the moment, is know very well what is the nice need. Because we are left the people that approve in their houses now, the people that is hold the papers, but there is no house. I think this is the problem now we have it in that working, that because there's no policy at that time, everybody is applying. But now we must come back and collect all that people is getting the approval, but there is no housing. And then we see what is the problem we can do, and then we are starting fresh with our policy. But thank you for the people who is doing the issue of the policy. It's only one thing is dependent to us as a councillor to read the policy, because sometimes we are not read the policy, we approve the policy. When it's a problem, the problem is not catered to the policy. When the officials say the policy is not catered to what we are saying, and then we are starting fighting with the officials. I think, to me, I appreciate the policy and I welcome you. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Councillor Salaze. Debulela Mtangi. Manager Petuna, can I hand over to you?
Thank you, Chairperson. I think the issues that have been raised by councillors are valid issues, which is why the policy itself had to be drafted at this point in time to make sure that we address the very issues that the councillors are dealing with. Let me perhaps just deal with few issues in respect of this. Because in NISNA, what has happened is that housing, we've dealt with it on a reactive manner. We did not deal with it in a proactive manner. And it's about time that we start dealing with housing in a proactive manner, in a coordinated manner, in a way where everyone has got an agreement around how housing is going to be implemented within NISNA. And the issues that are being raised here are issues that the policy itself is trying to deal with. Let me just deal with these few things that perhaps we need to have. We've got now this document which has been drafted, which deals with the policy on a helicopter view, but we need to deal with it now on a more detailed manner at this point in time. But there are issues that we need to deal with. Our spatial development framework currently need to start to deal with the issue of housing and how housing is going to be implemented. It doesn't help us that we've got a spatial development framework that does not address the housing need and what we are having at this point in time and what we are saying that we need to ensure that housing is developed. Because we can talk about the issue of land, but if your spatial development framework does not deal with that, how housing is going to be implemented in the next 20 to 30 years. Because we've got to have a 30-year plan in terms of the national development plan. We've got to ensure that we've got a plan that will address how we're going to deal with housing in the next 30 years. Now, the other document now that we don't have, that we need to start to have now, is the Human Settlement Sector Plan. And that is the next document that we're going to develop now. That is the document that is going to fit into the spatial development framework in terms of where the land parcels that would be used for housing are going to be, so that we can be able to deal with the housing issue. But of importance to me is that we got to start to deal with the communities and the expectations of the communities, because bold decisions have got to be taken now at this point in time in terms of how to implement housing. Gone are the days where people are expecting to live in a single-story house with an F that is just for that person, where we've got a land issue. We've got to now start to go back to the communities so that they can understand that there are other ways of implementing housing to ensure that if there is a land issue, we address this land issue. That's why we are having this policy. So we've got to start talking about multiple story buildings that are required so that we can address this, because we can't talk about not having land and not having strategies to deal with that. So these are some of the strategies that we'll be dealing with. We'll also have a procedure manual. For example, I will tell you now that there's an issue with beneficiary management that comes up every time there's a project. Someone somehow is corrupt about something, about beneficiary that has been allocated illegally, because there is no beneficiary policy that is there in place. So it's one of the policies that we want to develop to make sure that we move in a coordinated manner where everyone understands where we are going. So the issues that have been raised by councillors, I note the issues by Councillor Ngezu about the houses that were never built. In fact, those were prior to year 2000. And those houses, I have in fact spoken to him to say he must go back and identify those people, because there's a town planning issue. There's a fundamental town planning issue that we need to deal with in respect of that, to make sure that there is land to develop those. We are in the process of appointing town planners and the land surveyors to deal with that. And that is something that is in our plan. We are dealing with that. It's just taking time at this point in time. The issues that you raised in Bloemfontein, we are dealing with those issues. Issues around fleece, that is one of the issues that is being dealt with in the policy itself. and it's one of the things that we would want to implement. But I think what needs to happen is that I think Davi will talk about what needs to happen, because some of these will need to be explained to the councillors, will need to be explained to the ward committees, so that they can understand what fleece means and how it's going to be implemented, because it's one of the tools that would be implemented in future. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Manager Petuna. Colleagues, can we go to committee members, page 12? On the recommendation, we've got, okay. Councillor Skusana,
Sorry, Chair.
did you? Sure, come in.
There's something that was raised by Mr. Petuna, which is said that there's a town planner issue, which is a fundamental issue that need to be addressed, that can assist us in the problem that we're having. Chair, if you can go, if you still have the old agenda with you of 16 July 2020 of the same committee, in your resolve issues, they were supposed to have been told about how far is the appointment of a town planner. I think it even mentioned it now, saying that is a fundamental issue so that we can get out of this quagmire that we're having in Niger. I will appreciate if you can tell us now how far is that process so that we can continue with the minutes in the meeting.
Okay. Noted, Councillor Skusana. Councillor Katie, I see your hand is up.
Yes, if someone could just answer me on my previous comments with regard to the land in Karatara. If I must take this out of this meeting, I'm prepared to do that. But if there is an answer with regard to subdividing some of the land there for people to buy their own land, I don't know if I should take this out of this meeting, but I would maybe like someone to give me an answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I see Petuna, Director Duenas. Can I hand over to you guys? And Joel. I'm not sure who's going to go first.
Okay, Tabi, go for it. Hello? Councillor? Oh, sorry.
Chairperson?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Can I ask Lendile to respond? Can I ask Lendile to respond?
Okay, thanks, Director. Petuna.
All right, thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Director. All right, the appointment of a town planner, that is underway. We've gone through a supply chain process now to appoint the town planner that is going to deal with this matter. So that one is already has gone through a BEC, is supposed to go through a BEC now and a BAC, so that we can appoint that town planner that will start to deal with some of these issues. So SM process is already underway. The issue that we're now dealing with is an issue that when we deal with the adjustment budget in the next few weeks, because we have to adjust some fundings to make sure that we've got funding to deal with that issue. We've got certain proposals that we have tabled to the finance officials to deal with that, so that we can have sufficient funding to address that. So that is underway. We are dealing with that. In terms of what Councillor Vedeman is saying about Karatra, it is correct that we need to ensure that land is subdivided, but we need to understand the customers in that area. So there is some work in terms of profiling the kind of people that are there to ensure that there is a project that is implementable, so that we don't implement a project and at the end of the day we find out that we don't have the customers, because please is one of those instruments that need to make sure that you've got customers that can that are able to get finance from the bank to be able to implement. If you don't have those customers, then fleece will not be successful. So it's just in the manner that it is implemented. That's why I said that we need to deal with these instruments in a workshop kind of a setting where they are explained so that everyone can understand, and the processes that are then going to be implemented are then also explained so that the community understands, the councillor understands, but we know that there are land parcels in Karatra which are big enough, which can be subdivided. And I couldn't agree more that they need to be subdivided. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Manager Petuna. Colleagues, I'm sure all the questions have been attended to now. Let's quickly go to the recommendation, page 12. We've got A, B, C, and D committee members. Yes, Queen Anna?
Yeah, I'm saying let's go with it.
Okay, we agree, colleagues. I've heard Councillor Quinana. I know it was seconded by Councillor Matiwane. Did I captured you well, colleagues?
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson, we can go.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you very much, colleagues. Our next item, page 57, 7.2, social housing program. Okay, I see the hand of Councillor Luzuko. Colleagues, can I just first hand over to my directorate, just to put a flesh in the bone. Director Dwonders, I see. Can I hand over to you?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. I will ask Joel to lead us in this item, please.
Okay. Quickly, Mr. Chair, thank you once again. Again, this is a very exciting development for Knysna municipality. You will recall, I think 3 years ago, you approved what is called restructuring zones. These were geographical locations in which you said, or nodes, in which council advocated for development of, integrated human settlements, in particular social housing. Now that we have that, as well as the backing of province, we now sitting in a position whereby we have identified 2 of our properties, primarily one for social housing, in which we will go on a partnership arrangement with outside housing institutions. The intent is to advertise, like has happened in cities like City of Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, and even nearby Nelson Mandela, whereby you advertise for partnership. It's in line with the Municipal Finance Management Act, the Social Housing Act. Those are the instruments which are guiding this process, where it allows for, as well as the asset register, regulations. They allow for use of council property for the purpose of FL deriving equity. Now, equity in social equity in this instance will be the development of social housing initiatives by accredited housing institutions accredited by the Social Housing Regulatory Authority, which is called the SHRA. So we're now taking the ship towards actually social housing as one of the typologies. And we're saying the Milkwood flats, which are located in Knysna, in the inner suburban areas of Knysna, as well as Kelly Court. Kelly Court will be used for upgrading as an existing public rental entity, in which we can use government funding, capital funding, to upgrade the asset and to actually lease it to both elderly people as well as actually people that sit within the informal rental, or rather the affordable rental category. So this is an exciting page, and then the council can now decide, as is in the housing plan, the plan that you approved earlier, that we can now test the pilot, because the council will save on cost on maintaining that particular asset. We will learn from it and replicate it also in the other flats, which are in a state of disrepair, I must add. So this is an excellent opportunity for the council to leverage the use of these 2 flats for the purpose of housing people in low-income rental category. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joel. Thank you very much. Director Dwonders, do you still want to come in?
Chairperson, now let us give the councillors opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you, Acting Director. Councillors, I saw earlier on the Councillor Chokolo. I'll open councillors. Can I have an indication of councillors who will want to engage on this item? Councillor Chokolo, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I want to applaud the Acting Director, Jewel, and also Lindile on this one. I think it's an exciting item, and I also want to say that if you can remember, Chair, this is also a response to an item that was submitted in July in the Section 80 of Governance. It was staff housing policy. It went to the MACO, and the MACO Acting Director requested that it be withdrawn. And I think this is a response to that. And if you remember also, in that MACO meeting, the DA caucus already had proposals. One of them was this social housing. So we are very excited that we're going this direction, Chair. Just a question, Chair. I see in the report, when you go to the comments on page 64, I don't see anything maybe from corporate services, whereas there was an item, as I'm saying, that was withdrawn, which was also connected to what is being proposed here. I would just like to know, was there any engagement on how to move forward then? Because there was an item that was withdrawn, because there was this that's going to come. Otherwise, Chair, we're looking forward to this. We're really excited. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Chokolo. Director Dwellis, can you attend to that concern raised by Councillor Chokolo about comment from corporate services? Or do we still have a director of corporate services into this meeting? Dwellis, can I hand over to you?
Chairperson,
Yes,
the council. Should I give the Director Corporate Services a chance?
Director, thanks, Dwellis. Director, do you want to comment? Director Corporate Service.
No, thanks, Chair. This item that is brought by Human Settlements now, I think it's coming a long way, and we had this debate when that particular item on the staff housing policy was presented. We indicated in the item that Council needs to make a determination on the issue of the Milkwood and Kelly courts in terms of making them available for social housing. So when we were presenting the item on the staff housing policy, we were quite aware of the engagements with Human Settlements, that this is the direction that they would want to take. So if Council is having an appetite to engage into the social housing program, then those 2 blocks of flats would then be made available as per the resolution of Council to convert them into social housing. Yes, we did have discussions from last year already, before the legal services and properties moved to the MM's office. So yes, we are aware, Chairperson. Thank you.
Director Makoma, thank you very much. Director Dwellis, do you want to say something? Otherwise, I think this item is very clear. Chokolo, Councillor Chokolo have spoken.
My colleague covered me, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much, Director. Before we move to recommendation at page 65, I see the end of my mayor, number one. Number one, can I know over to you?
Chairperson, thank you very much. Good morning, council's officials. Chair, I have to apologize and excuse me, you can bring me out of order if I'm totally out of order here. I just need to understand the comments made on some of these pages. And the first comment I want to get clarity on, because the last thing, sorry, Kirsten, just close the door there. Sorry. My apologies there. Chair, my apologies. Chair, the last thing that you want again to happen here is to give our community some hope, which sometimes just ended up in false hope. And I don't want to get in that situation anymore. You know, and I know that housing, and all of us actually know that housing is a very sensitive issue. And the last thing that you want to do is create some sort of hope with people, and then eventually you have to disappoint them. So my question basically, that's why I'm asking that if I'm out of order, Chair, you can rule me out of order. I just need to understand, when you on page 63, Joe or Mr. Duenas, when you make a reference to about 6 selected municipality, they therefore need to accept that Knysna is one of the 6 selected municipalities. And when you're talking about with effect of the 7th of November 2020, the indication therefore is to start with that program on the 7th of November 2020. Again, Chairperson, I apologize if I'm getting late on a bandwagon which is running quite quickly now. Can I just get answers to that, please? Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor.
Can I answer that? Yeah.
Joel, I'm going to give you opportunity. Chairperson, the mayor is correct. The Knysna municipality is one of the selected municipalities. You must remember that when we as a council, when the council promulgated or decided under restructuring zones, I think there's 5 in Knysna. We had to submit it to the province and through province to national. That restructuring zones was promulgated as and accepted as a restructuring zone. So we started a few years, I think it's 4 or 5 years ago, with this idea already. Now, in terms from a process perspective, we can kickstart the process because this project has been acknowledged by the provincial government of the Provincial Department of Human Settlements already. So, Joel, can you just, if you want to say something?
Mr. Chair, I think, yeah, first and foremost, well spotted once again to the mayor, that particular program. It's called the social housing, the Municipal Social Housing Support Program, which the SHRA and NASHO is an independent body of housing institutions. They have initiated that project. Unfortunately, that train escaped us when we failed to have this item to sit in July. It's unfortunate it has escaped that one. That's a separate program whereby the SHRA in particular will empower municipalities to be able to handle their social housing programs. But it does not preclude us. It's a separate actual intervention. It does not stop us from actually going what we propose in this item. In other words, the partnership route with housing institutions. It's just that we will have to approach the SHRA belatedly and say, because we have missed the closing date, because we couldn't submit this without having a housing policy. You see now, government is saying, we won't give you anything if you don't have a plan, a housing policy, and a social housing program. By virtue of you considering this item, we will have actually plugged that hole, but the only thing it will have done it belatedly. However, we will try and communicate with the SHRA, whom I have actually advised that we have had to miss the consideration of our policy and this program. And they said we must still submit. They might actually consider us belatedly. So we're crossing our fingers that it does happen. But it does not affect your consideration of your recommendations. In other words, to go the proposal call for housing institutions to consider the development and management of those 2 flats. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Joel. And Mayor, is that a follow-up?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Adonis and Mr. Joel Ungwana. Again, Chair, as I said earlier, it's exciting. I'm looking forward towards it. I don't want us to be bogged up again in creating expectations from communities and then end up again with X no face and with red faces. So I hope if we're talking about the 7th of November 2020, that this program then will start then. And in the meantime, I assume there should have been an interaction with especially those 2 properties, Gully Court, as well as the Milkwood flats in that regard. But Chair, if it's exciting, I only want to see the excitement the moment people are doing something. Then I'm getting excited. I'm not getting excited anymore when it comes to houses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Chokolo, I see you end up.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Chair, just on page 57, there's a paragraph there under the products, the housing products. Because I was under the impression that the policy that you dealt with before this item can be approved or is being approved by the committee. But I see in that paragraph they are saying final approval by council. So I just want clarity there. Has the committee now approved that policy, or does it still have to go to council? Because my impression was that the committee can approve a policy. If I can just get clarity on that, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Chokolo. Director Dwene, so that we can move to the recommendation.
Chairperson, I would like to assist on Melanie. I think in terms of the delegations, the committee has the delegated authority to approve policy. Just in terms of response to the mayor, I think in our attempt to manage the expectations of councillors and the community, I think that what this item attempt to do is to give us the authority to start with a process of getting a social housing project approved. So it doesn't mean that we will start with a project in this financial year. So I just want to highlight that. We will have the next phase of our strategy will be that we will have a housing in Daba, to also workshop the approved policy. And in that housing in Daba, we will have, that is part of our SDBIBs, we will have all the role players with regards to financing institution, province, national, HDA, all our partners, and also the community and community sectors in the community, that how that we will present our plans and our strategies and our policies to, and come up with a proper human settlements development strategy out of that. So I just want to make that note.
Thank you, Director Dwanes. Can we have Melanie or Carl to assist on the question or concern raised by Councillor Chokolo?
Thank you, Councillor, Chairperson, Deputy Mayor. I'm not sure whether Melanie is in. Currently, the delegations indeed allows for your committee to approve policy.
Okay, thank you very much, Carl. Director, is it the old hand, or do you want to? You know, I see now the Director Dwanes.
That's an old hand.
Thank you, Director. Mr. Petuna.
All right, Chairperson, I just wanted to come in just before you deal with the recommendations, because there's a recommendation which we think that it has been left because there is an issue that deals with either a lease or a sale. So it must just be part of the recommendation. So it's not just about inviting social housing institution, but council needs to take a decision whether this is going to be a long-term lease or it's going to be a sale of these land parcels. We've got our proposals from our side in terms of what we think is the best instrument to deal with this. And the proposal from our side is not an outright sale, but it is a long-term lease to make sure that we've got value capture from a council side. We keep the asset, and we can then utilize that asset for financial reasons in future. That's the proposal. So I'm just proposing that perhaps we add a condition to either, but it's up to council to either say that they would want to lease or to sell this portion of land. And the kind of lease that would have to be applicable would have to be between 40 and 50 years to make sure that the project itself is successful. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Petuna. Chokolo, is it the old end?
No, it's a new one, Chair.
Okay, ngena sibali. Sibali mina siuphethe lo mcimbi kaloku man.
No, no, Chair, I was going to make it easy. The recommendation I think that the manager was trying to bring in now, I was going to suggest that we maybe consider doing that recommendation in the actual council meeting, because I think in any case this committee can't make decisions on leasing or selling of land, of property. So I think it's a good one. Council needs to decide on it, but I think it needs to go to the actual council meeting. That's my suggestion, Chair. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Chokolo. Colleagues, our recommendation is on page 65, and Carl have clarified us to say that this committee has a right to pass a policy or to adopt a policy as per the questions from Councillor Chokolo. But I've taken note of what Councillor Chokolo have just raised now in terms of that recommendation which was proposed by the manager, Human Settlement, Mr. Petuna. Committee members, let's go to the recommendation. A, B, C, D, and E. Siyavumelana. Committee members. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, colleagues. Our next item.
Sorry, Chair. So sorry for this, Chair. I think, no, it's me, Joel. I think we must add that one, but it's quite a critical one, that the consideration be given. I mean, it's now F, recommendation F, consideration be given to a 40 to 50 year, whichever actually is viable, transfer of both properties, you know, in other words, on a leasehold basis, because the council doesn't use the asset. It's very important. And I think that aspect would have to go to council because of the value of those assets. I would tend to agree with Councillor Chokolo.
Okay, thank you.
In any case, this item is going to council.
No, thanks, Brachol. I see now, Carl. Carl, can I hand over to you? And after Carl, I'm going to hand over to Director Dwanes, or is it the old end? Mr. Matthijs?
It's not an old end.
Matthijs, is it an old end? Thank you, sir. Livale?
Chair, I just want to hear what Carl's going to say, but I agree that there must be the recommendation must be part of the recommendation must be amended. So I just want to hear what Carl says first, and then I think I can respond further. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Carl?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Chair. The committee has resolved on the first item because that's a policy. This is the second item, 7.2 on page 57 onwards. You do not have delegated authority to deal with all the matters as mentioned in the recommendation. Therefore, whatever you decide would be a recommendation from your committee to MACO. MACO will then consider the item and will make a recommendation to council, because as was rightly stated, it deals directly or even indirectly with alienation or at least leasing on the long term of municipal properties, which is not a delegated matter and can only be dealt with by the municipal council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Matthijs. Do you still want to come in, Councillor Livale?
No, exactly what I've been saying. I agree with Mr. Matthijs, this call. So we need to add it in to the recommendations in any case so that it can go through the normal process of MACO and then to the council, because council will ultimately have to make a decision.
Thank you. Director Dwanes?
Chairperson, can I maybe suggest that because I'm a little bit concerned if we put in an recommendation, a specific type of approach towards this, then we take out the whole issue of the proposal call that we in any case going to do. And maybe what we should do, and I want to have a discussion before, if your committee indulge us, that we discuss this on and hopefully can do a additional recommendation to the MACO with regards to the type of either lease or both selling. Because at the end of the day, the possibility might be that once we go out on proposal call, that we will get an offer to sell that we cannot resist. So I'm just thinking of that options, because at the end of the day, we shouldn't put a recommendation in that will bind the private market or will bind proposals to be channeled into one direction. I'm just thinking, and the other thing is I don't want to compromise the committee by rushing into a recommendation that is not applied to, because at the end of the day, lease or selling, there's a legal, there's an administrative, so I think we should just be ask for permission that we can formulate a recommendation that is beneficial to council in terms of that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Director, Acting Director. Councillor Levale, I'm not sure whether is it on an old hand.
Oh, thank you, Chair. That sounds good, Chair. That sounds good. Thank you.
What sounds good? What the Acting Director just proposed?
What Mr. Donor says sounds good, because it's obviously there's no consensus yet within the department. So I think it will be good if they can get consensus and then draft the recommendation accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, no, that's fine. Joel? Joe?
Oh, no, I wanted to, yes, no, we don't disagree with the director. The director is absolutely correct. It's in the body of the item, because the standard practice in these similar things is either the municipality lease fees on a long term. It's in the policy, social housing policy, or consider to sell it at 10% of the nominal value of the market value, of the asset. Lindile put it so well when he said, rather let's go the norm, which is actually to lease, so that we can protect the assets. If these guys do the social housing pilots and they don't perform according to contractual agreements, we can always, as a municipality, take it back. That's the value of having a leasehold. So the land is never lost to the municipality. I would rather err on the basis that maybe let's have a discussion. Let's leave out recommendation 6 as the acting director has indicated. Let's have another discussion going to MACO, and then we can put an item that's clear. But it's in the item. The body of the item talk to long-term leasehold, and the Municipal Finance Management Act allows for that, because we're using it for low-income households. But we can debate it, and as the director is saying, submit an item to MACO, just to clear that part.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pracho. I think, colleagues, the committee have resolved with these 5 from A, B, C, and D, and E. This recommendation to MACO. Committee members, once again, do we still agree to accept the recommendation? I want an indication so that we can move. The housing the department can always submit an item to MACO, but we need to resolve on this one. Committee members, I want an indication. I remember earlier on we did agree with these items, with this recommendation. Can I have an indication, committee members, please, so that we can proceed?
Yes, Chairperson.
Yeah. Seconder, any seconder?
Second, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Our next item is page 77, 7.3, the current status, risk and challenges of housing projects program 2020-2021. You know, reports submitted by Mr. Director, Integrated Human Settlement. Colleagues, the floor is open for questions, comments. Page 77. I see Councillor Chokolo. Any other councillors? I see Brother Joel. Okay, Councillor Chokolo before.
Yes, you can give first, Joel, it's fine.
Okay, must I give, okay, fine, let me first give Joel and I'll give the mayor. Is that Councillor Skusana?
Yes.
Okay, sharp. Can I give to Bracho and I'll give the mayor, Councillor Chokolo, Councillor Skusana, in that order.
Okay. Councillor, thank you once again, Deputy Mayor, Chairperson. The intent of this item is to highlight years of consequential risk and challenges that this community, I think all of us sitting around with this meeting, we all know that NISA has serious inherent risk within this housing environment. Some of the issues were related to earlier people sitting in TRA for more than 10 years, a lopsided waiting list, growing informal settlements with the third largest, municipality, with people migrating to NISA. We don't know in the Western Cape why we've become the third largest. In fact, with COVID and everything, the densification in the informal settlement remains a high risk, still remains a high risk, even though we are on level 2. So we have a problem. We're only delivering 400 units. We have actually a demand that's just actually exceeded 10,000, growing by 3% annually. So we have a problem here. And this item is really to relate, project by project risk. And I'm hoping councillors have had time to familiarize and read, because I don't ever want to repeat and waste your time. Each project has inherent risk, which are highlighted there from page 80 up to page 80, what's the last one? Page 80, I think 84. Now, we then make relevance to what are the interventions which are required to try and salvage this. Part of the interventions is what we've just approved. The fact that we have now a strategic plan and a policy framework with specific instruments to deal with this issue gives you enough leverage and traction to be able to deal with it. So that's the first part is of the interventions you have actually overcome by virtue of considering the two items which you have just considered, which talk to typologies, etc. One of the issues, the following proposed intervention, for instance, was the breach of conduct matter be expeditially resolved. I'm happy to reflect, I'm sure Acting Director Davi will confirm this as well as that the breach of conduct matter for small contractors has been resolved. So we can tick that one also as well. Number 2, these are all in page 85, Mr. Chair. It be noted that the previous contract of the 9 contractors, again, has been actually resolved. It's in the process of being actually resolved with the 2 sets of lawyers. Once again, thanks to the municipal manager, acting municipal manager, the acting director, as well as Melanie, legal advisors, for having actually come together to resolve this. It be noted that there are currently 4 established big contractors doing major work in Hondli, Kolweni, phase 2 in Kolweni, but phase 1 remains a risk, and then Bloemfontein in situ upgrade, which is the flats, the duplexes that we're doing, 150 of them. Firstfield, Dunes, and as well as Hondli. It be noted that within this, it be noted that the Western Cape Department of Human Settlements and internal top management team were previously briefed about the matter, and formal letters sent to the Western Cape about actually the related implications. That if these 4 major projects are not funded within the current financial year appropriately, then we're going to have serious problems. We already spent more than 50% of the current allocation for 2020-21 financial year, which means that the council is moving on the correct trajectory in terms of expenditure. Something that did not used to happen. The claiming and the expenditure seems to be running to be correlated now. But all projects like Visions, we negotiated with the Department of the Western Cape Human Settlements for a possible takeover. This project has been running for more than 15 years. You can't do a project, the standard in the industry is between 3 to 5 years. Once you continue doing project over a prolonged period, you're gonna have inherent problems, as we have seen. People invade land, we cannot cast the slabs, we cannot do the top structure development. As a result, province actually diverts the money, for various uses. So that remains a risk. Further to above, and given the added implications of the COVID-19 pandemic and need for emergency housing, which is the new now norm, government has come together to say emergency housing to decant people from informal settlements into new locations or upgrade where they're sitting while you're decanting others elsewhere. So that you can create space and safety in terms of health, etc. So that requires the following integrations: need for structured handling of the current densities in our numerous informal settlements. This talks to the current high wave of land invasions which we are encountering. There's also a comprehensive response to critically required, as per approved earlier strategic plan and COVID-19 challenges. We have applied to province for 8 informal settlements in which we can, for enumeration, profiling, as well as emergency housing. Administratively, we have located the argument there, but because of budget cuts, this thing is now being deferred. However, council needs to politically take this thing forward and address it with province, because I think the administrative arm has really done all that's reasonable to try and locate it. And with the passage of time, we need to act with haste, because people are exposed actually to COVID and all kinds of problems. This has resulted in socio-political tensions because of the fact that we are not able to relate to the growing, backlog. There are socio-political tensions there. And what happens? People invade land. We have limited land or virtually none. Now, we have to do something about it and note it is a risk. In order to successfully complete the above programs, there is an eventual need for firm funding and strategic use of our own land parcels. I think we have raised this issue. Councillors have raised various issues around why we've got enough land in our areas. But we need to look at this thing holistically and begin to say, how do we begin to decant people and use our existing land parcels to get people from different areas to be settled in these areas? That's a bold, creative decision that you need to make. Yes? Yes, David?
Now, can I just ask you to stop there, so that the councillors can answer, can ask the questions in terms of the various projects that were highlighted, and then we can respond as the administration.
That's fine.
Joel, Pezang. Bazathi balibali nalabo kale khona. Can I have an indication? I see Councillor Chokolo, no, let's start the mayor. Councillor Chokolo, Councillor Skosana, then Skosana, yeah. In that order, colleagues.
Chair, is it the mayor or me before him? I'm not sure now.
No, it's the mayor. It's the mayor, Smart.
Okay. No, I'm disciplined. Wait, I am disciplined. Don't worry.
Councillor Theo Koller, that's got nothing to do with the position of the mayor. We just look at the person. Chair, thank you very much. When Joel normally starts speaking, when he finishes, I'm sometimes a bit, the word confused here is wrong, but I want to raise it. Sometimes when Joel's speaking, he's speaking so quickly on certain issues that he confused me sometimes on what I'm trying to ask. But may rather stick to my questions. This report, and the purpose thereof is quite simple. There are risks and challenges that have the potential to derail the program as well as specific projects and require urgent council intervention to mitigate against such risk instances. Now, Chair, under the background, and that for me is the important part, which I then want to go to specific things in this report. However, there remains an inherent history of socio-political challenges, managed capacity, and poor governance in the last 3 years that has combined to have a negative effect on proper controls and effective management of specific projects. So now, Chair, this committee needs to deal with the risks based on these comments made under the background. So then when I read the report, Chair, and thank you, Chair, let me also just thank the Director, Integrated Human Settlements, for the report. So when you read the report and you try to find out what is these challenges and risk and these type of things that have a specific possibility that it could derail programs. And I just want to read only 155, and then it stated A, B, C, D, E. I'm not going to read again. So I was trying to find, now where is the risk there? Well, what is happening there that there is a risk that this committee needs to consider, because I can't see. And I went through the others, and there is some indication where there's Redendal, Smartwatches, Amile, Slalani, but Lucas, there are some challenges raised there. But I cannot see in the report itself the real risk that dealt with management capacity, poor governance, socio-political challenges. It was mentioned in the background, but within the project itself, it didn't come to the fore quite clearly, which we had there. Chair, the other one, which, and when there's reference, for example, to poor governance, we are the government. We are governance. So I need to understand that this council in itself were responsible for poor governance, which have an impact on these projects. And I want to get clarity on that, Chair. Chair, I've got a lot of questions on the report itself, especially when it comes to Horn in my ward. But I would just want to get clarity. If the purpose of this report, Mr. Adwinis, was to highlight the challenges which have potential to derail the program, I want us to be quite clear and specific. The appointment of such a contractor due to the supply chain process that is currently with impact or whatever, have a real impact on that specific project. The fact that we didn't do 1, 2, and 3, that project might end up, and I'll give you a simple example here. The only project, there's no mention about electricity, which is a real challenge, which could derail the project in itself and having community unrest. But I don't find that information in here in this report, Chair. So the point I want to make here is, if we are serious about looking at the risk and try to deal with the risk, which might have an impact in derailing the program, we should be quite clear on what is happening in our housing department. So I've got such a lot of questions in the report, but also I need to thank the department because they're now starting with something that we need to deal with as a council and as a municipality very seriously. And probably just because it's the first report and that we might come up with a more detailed, specific report that I would then look forward to discuss and debate on. But thanks for the report, Chair. I look forward for some of these responses. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Can we? I hope Director Adwinis and your and our team guys are taking notes of the questions as well as concerns raised. Can I? Is it Asset Chokolo and Councillor Skusana? Can we go with that order?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, if you remember my first question when you started, when you're going to the items that were submitted by the acting MN, my question was about the quarterly report, which is April, May, and June. And I got a response that that report is not due yet. And later on, I got another response that that report is on page 77. And I just want to state it clearly, Chair, that one of council's roles is to have an oversight of what's happening. So this report, for an example, I don't know when is it from, where does it end? It's just a report. And normally, I know in these Section 80 committees, you get a report for a certain month so that you know in March, this is what happened in April or May or so. That's just an example. So in this one, there's no quarterly report. I just want to state that upfront. And I also don't want to read the purpose of this report because the mayor has read it already. And it's quite different from what I was expecting from this report. I'm raising this, Chair, because I was told that what I was asking it is in this report. So, Chair, I'm not sure how this, I'm not a member of this committee, but I don't know how you deal with your reports, but there's no quarterly report or there's no quarterly report of the fourth quarter of 2019 and 2020. So to say this is a report, this is just telling us, and some of the things are very informative, yeah, but we don't get the grasp of what's happening month to month in this department. Because I know in the past we used to have a report where it tells us exactly even the shacks that have had fire. So I didn't get that in this report. I just wanted to raise that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Chokolo, Councillor Skusana. Then Councillor Davis.
Chair, I must first say thank you to your leadership. Thanks to you, Chair, and thanks to Mr. Adonis and Theo and Portia and the Director of Community Service for attending to the people of Sevenderland. I must say that, I must thank you guys for that. And also, I must thank you for going and see the slippery soil as well. But also, I think also I must raise it here that it's very frustrating when you send information to officials of housing. They just read it, they don't respond to you. Those information that we've been sent is community complaints, Chair. Sometimes we don't want to send directly to you because we don't want you to whip them. But I think it will be time I will talk to you and the MM and the mayor so that we don't have officials here who undermine councillors. Chair, I hope the people are making notes. I'm coming with 5-page questions. I'm at page 80, Sir Chair. One question that I would like to raise is the issue of the slippery soil. I know I was sent information, but I thought it will be part of the agenda of Section 8 so that from Section 8 it can go to the mayoral committee. From mayoral committee, the information can go directly to council if council need to make waste and the adjustment budget so that we can have money to help those people so that the council agree in totality that we need to do assistance there in terms of money. Secondly, Chair, your report does not reflect the issue of 50 units that were needed to be built within this financial year in terms of South at the Orbit area. Thirdly, Chair, your report does not reflect the slab that needed to be casted in terms of not even the number of the slabs, Chair. Also, Chair, in the last meeting we had in July, we made mention of the road one also was supposed to reflect in this report. It does not reflect, Chair. So it makes it difficult for a ward councillor like myself to report to ward committee members with what is happening. Also, Chair, your report does not talk to OPAT, what is taking place in OPAT, Chair. Clearly, Chair, your report does not talk to the Mandela House, which Joel and the former, I don't want to say this former MM, but the MM Vatala and yourself were there in that family, and Theo were there. You know the situation of that family, and now it's worse. Now it's raining left, right, and center. Tell the Chair, your report does not talk to the fencing of the TRAs in Shalani, which people were made promises by the same leadership, which is present, is still here. Tell the Chair, your report, Chair, does not reflect about our ratification money and our retaining walls, Chair. I need to know how much do I still have. Well, I didn't spend my money in my retaining walls, Chair. It's raining left, right, and center. Does the department have money for retaining walls? Fourthly, Chair, the report does not reflect in terms of the emergency kit. Do we have emergency kit? Do we have a challenge there in terms of emergency kit? Because it's raining again. I will mention that. People are coming to us. People are staying in wind houses. Specifically in OPAT, you know yourself, you help the people there. We need to help more people, Chair, through your leadership, Chair. Chair, also, I must say that normally our agendas have a breakdown of all wards, that how much retaining
past 11. We are going to resume after 11 o'clock with our meeting. I want to appeal to councillors not to leave. We can just take a break for now. Thank you.